Hey everyone. So apparently the discourse right now, and this is not going to be a discourse episode because I don't feel confident enough in it yet, but I figured it would be something we should weigh in because this is kind of our thing. There seems to be a debate right now on the online left that is around self-diagnosis. Now, the best I can gather, what people mean when they say self-diagnosis is somebody going online, looking up the diagnostic criteria of a particular disorder and deciding they have that without or before they have a clinical diagnosis from, say, a mental health professional, such as a psychiatrist, psychologist, etc. And there seems to be really strong opinions on this on every side. People condemning it, saying it's always bad, it's always terrible forever. And there are people who are really down for it and think it's a really good thing. So I figured we would talk about it. Does that make sense? Cool. So I think what we're going to do first is I'll give my take. Then Zena's going to give theirs. We'll interact with chat a bit. This is not going to be a long video. I just wanted to kind of put out a thought before we kind of dug into other people's content. So this whole self-diagnosis conversation is really fucking hard because I don't exactly know what people mean by these comments. I haven't watched any of the videos yet, partially because I didn't want to nudge myself one way or the other. I wanted to come at this from a clinical perspective because that's what you fuckers come here for. So this is kind of where my thoughts are. I dislike the framework of the language because I feel like it's not accurate. So we're talking about the difference between colloquial definitions of diagnosis versus clinical. If you say you have some sort of disorder or some sort of mental illness, that is not a diagnosis. Right? But assuming I'm going with that colloquial view, by definition, do I have a problem as a clinician for people to sort of get an idea where they're at or feel fairly confident in where they're at? The answer to this is not really. And again, I'm going to say it's complicated. There have been times where I and a client have struggled to find the accurate and right diagnosis for them. And the client, through searching and going on forums and like that, has brought in something that either I had limited familiarity on or just forgot existed. A really good example of this is I worked with an OCD client who didn't quite fit the criteria for OCD, but then turned out they had found online a very simple, very easy fix for that. There's a form of OCD that focuses more specifically on obsession, more focusing on the cognitive aspects, not the compulsive behavior. And we found that to be a much better fit. I wouldn't have come to that because I'm not an expert on OCD without the client's help. Did that client self-diagnose? Arguably. But I would say more, they brought forth an option and we explored it. So if we're talking about self-diagnosis and the idea that a person comes forward and gives me an idea of what they are thinking is going on, right? Like, I think I might have autism, or I think I might be ADHD. I don't mind pursuing that. I want to go with the person's intuition. They wouldn't have come to those answers without some reason. However, I think that's still something to interact with a mental health professional on. If we're talking about self-diagnosis in the sense that somebody just says they have something and then there's no further follow-up, I find myself hesitant to that, not because of the weird shit on Twitter where people are like, oh, you're just performatively pretending to have a mental illness. I don't give a fuck about that. People can do whatever they want. What I'm more bothered by is, what if you're wrong? My concern is that the reason why my opinion matters, or at least sort of matters, is that I've done enough training and done enough work to sort of have a pretty good honed intuition as to what is happening or what is going on. And if I don't know something, I work with the client to find that. The problem that we're having right now is that if somebody just decides they have something and there's no backing to that, no basis, it's a claim, and it very well could be a true claim, but I don't really know what to do with that beyond if they ask me and I'm their therapist, tell them whether I think that's accurate or not. And I'm going to be honest one way or the other. That being said, I am a big fan of the idea of people learning these different disorders because I think there's use in that. I've been a big proponent of the notion that I think we need to stop demonizing and stigmatizing language from mental health. One of the things when working with borderline people that I think is a big deal is if you're borderline and you don't know what the fuck borderline even is, spoiler alert, you by definition are wandering around wondering why your emotions are out of whack, why you get angry at the drop of a hat, why your mom leaving the house causes a panic attack, and all of a sudden you get the word for it. You get the idea of borderline. There's this construct, this idea that explains all of these behaviors. It becomes the name of the monster. It becomes a way to understand it. It's no longer this dark unknown that can never be understood. Instead, it becomes this thing. And if someone does that beforehand, I don't have a problem with that. Now, obviously, if I disagree, we'll have to work that out, but I don't mind conflict in sessions. So I guess for me, the self-diagnosis question comes down to, is that all they're doing? Are they just saying they have something with no backing or formal mental health, support? I don't know how I really feel about that, but if we're talking about in the sense that they've kind of done research and they've looked at it and they said, this is what seems to fit, why shouldn't I listen to them? They know their experience better than I do. Right? Like, I might have more after Zena talks, but that's kind of my thoughts on this. So, Zena, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I do find self-diagnosis to be a bit confusing, but colloquially our language doesn't always make perfect sense, right? If that word self is in there, we kind of get the idea that you weren't talking to a professional for a variety of reasons. When I see self-diagnosis a lot, it is from people who are not able to, find doctors that can actually work with them. This can happen a lot with PMDD, depending on where you live. And so people will be in this weird, null space where they're like, well, shit, I need support and I need help, but I can't get anywhere to get this diagnosis, right? I can't do much to fix it. And so, I will see sometimes in my PMDD groups, no, we go, even if you feel like you've got a self-diagnosis of this, or this is something that you think you have, no, you're still welcome here, because guess what? We can share data with you. We can share information. We can share resources. We can share ways for you to, ways for you to talk to your doctor or therapist about this particular thing. And so in a lot of these groups, we don't want to gatekeep people or prevent them from getting resources just because they're not able to get a professional on board with them right at that second, okay? And I think it's important to keep that stuff in mind with this, because things like autism, ADHD, there's a lot of other things that you might be waiting a while to get in there, with professionals to start working on this stuff. But in the meantime, you still need help. You still need some way to get there. And so maybe self-diagnosis isn't the best language, but am I that bothered if somebody's really new to mental health and figuring stuff out? I mean, this minor word is not the biggest thing that I'm going to worry about, right?
Well, and let's also be really clear about this, is diagnoses are basically just constructs that we created for the purposes of describing an experience. We're talking about a phenomenon in mental health, or, even medicine as a whole. And the simple fact is what they're basically used for, if I'm going to be really honest, is insurance. Do you know what I use diagnostic codes for? Insurance. If clients come in and I don't know, we have certain diagnoses we use to be able to bill. That's how it works. The simple fact of the matter is that this idea that diagnoses are these rigid things, I don't really buy it. I think the thing is that, yeah, do I think that if you believe you have something, you should get that checked out? Yes. Now, Kira brings up a really good point in chat. I've spoken with a lot of people who are plural, who don't have formal diagnoses of DID due to the stigma of diagnosis in the mental health profession. So yeah, so even I had that stigma at one point, despite recent changes in my thinking. The fact of the matter is that, yeah, you're just not going to get a formal diagnosis of DID, even if you are plural and legitimately do experience multiple personalities, because you may not be traumagenic. right? I'm learning plural language slowly, so don't at me. But the two terms I've heard are endogenic and traumagenic. That is, where do these different personalities come from? And if I believe the actual framework of this system, then by definition, if you're not traumagenic, you wouldn't show up as DID because DID has connections to trauma. That's historically true. So it's a really complicated discussion. I honestly think that I have ADHD and I self-diagnose in the sense that I use techniques recommended by people with ADHD. I don't want to bring it up with my psych again because... So if you're...
I had thoughts on this one, and Jess probably has thoughts too.
Yeah, you want to go first, and then I have some very aggressive thoughts.
So Jess, you're probably going to handle the ADHD part. Absolutely, like, looking to other, disorders or other disabilities or other, neurodiverse stuff, like, that can be really, really helpful to figure stuff out, even if you don't have that actual diagnosis. Like, I'm not ADHD, but no, there are a lot of techniques that are really, really helpful for ADHD people that also help me. I deal with PMDD. There's a lot of cognitive stuff involved in that. Bullet journaling, a system created by a man with ADHD, is extremely useful for PMDD for a lot of, similar reasons. There are times when, PMDD will mimic other things. So I think totally, like, go look in other places. That's why I want to be careful with language, is that we're not gatekeeping, people without, the hardcore diagnosis from still being able to get help from, those strategies. So. Yeah,
so Patella, my response to this is really simple. Here's how I usually describe ADHD to clients. So for neurotypical people, they generally experience their thoughts as sort of a movement from A to B, maybe B to C1 to C2. There's sort of this linear progression that might have some tangenting, but most of the time moves in a basic directionality. That is not how ADHD people think. ADHD people tend to be, and this is the best description I've ever come up with, which is windshield glass when it spiderwebs. When a rock hits your windshield and cracks in every direction, that tends to be how my thought process works. That tends to be how a lot of ADHD people's thought process works. So that's the first part. Do your thoughts work in a typical way, or are they neuroatypical, right? The next part I would say is this. Go to the store, as long as you don't have a heart condition or some other reason why you can't have a stimulant, and go buy a Monster energy drink or Reign or whatever's tasty, and drink the entire fucking thing. If you're doing this and you can't sleep, probably not ADHD. Sorry. But if you drink a fuck ton of Monster, a fuck ton of Reign, and you suddenly are like focused and chill, guess what? Might be something to explore with your therapist, because stimulants work differently on people with ADHD. Due to the dopamine deficiency theory, we produce less, and as such, stimulants work differently on us. Right? This is why we prescribe methylphenidate, which is a fucking dopamine, like a selective dopamine reuptake inhibitor, or fucking like Adderall, which is basically just dopamine. Can we be clear here? That's what you're doing. So I would say try those things and then talk to your mental health professional. And again, check out things like How to ADHD. She has good videos on this stuff.
And if you're not getting somewhere with a mental health professional and you're like, shit, I need expertise in this area that this person doesn't have, or you're like, seriously, dude, I need you to get on board, like, and you're not, keep finding more people. There's a lot of stigma around ADHD that is real rough.
So real quick, Ash, and I just want to talk about this. Do you need to go to a therapist to determine if you're gender nonconforming? No. It is not my job as a therapist to ever tell you whether you are trans. Full stop. I have this discussion with clients all of the time. They will literally go, by the way, MW, I see you in YouTube chat. That makes sense. Perfect said. But essentially, what they said was, hi, I'm using self-diagnosis as a way to better understand myself until such a time I could possibly withstand my area's diagnostic process. Fair enough.
No, I think
that's
legit, yeah. What you were referring, weren't you? Where we got?
Thank you,
lost again.
thank you, Kira. I appreciate your pharmacist help. God damn it! Lost my train of thought.
I think we were referring to something that probably scrolled off screen. Was why?
Yeah, they're off screen now.
Screen, I mean screen.
Yeah. So Ash asked, do you need this? No, I can never tell you whether you're trans or not. The only thing that I can ever tell a person is whether they are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So, Viridian, I can't pronounce that. Viridian. I'm sorry. Marbles. I'm gonna go with marbles. Marbles in YouTube chat.
Viridian.
Viridian. Thank you.
Green.
Is it?
Viridian is a type of green. So, green marbles.
And just literal meth. Yes, don't do meth to help ADHD.
Yeah.
That's a thing I feel strong about. Though there are jokes in the ADHD community where it's like, you know, you go to the party, everyone's doing fucking cocaine, and everyone's talking about their life story, and everything's funny, and then the ADHD person's sitting there going like, I could do homework. Everyone's like vibrating and like, I could just do another one, and like they're fucking running around like crazy people telling everyone their life story, and you're literally like, I guess I'm gonna go home and resort my shelves.
So that D&D meme where like
so
the dudes will have like Mountain Dew and Cheetos, I really think kind of stems in some of that caffeine with ADHD testing.
So Viridian, I apologize. My pronunciation skills are awful. Again, ADHD. You just found the channel? Wonderful. Please subscribe, like, do the thing. As far as the schizophrenia or schizoaffective, here's the thing I would state. That happens. Sometimes if you're not obvious and your behavior is not all over the place, they have a hard time with diagnosis. The thing I would say is hold that diagnostic idea lightly, because there are examples of people being formally diagnosed and having it very wrong. A really good example of this is the creator of DBT. She in her youth was somebody who had a lot of run-ins with hospitals, and they thought she was schizophrenic. Turned out she had borderline, or what she believes to be borderline now. So I would say if that's the best you've come up with, that's cool. Hold that lightly, and then see if you can find a therapist or find someone who's going to work with you to either come to that or a different conclusion. No worries. I do live on Dew. Again. By the way, Kira, I do appreciate you using formal terminology. I am not a person that diagnoses formally. I am a person that diagnoses people. I'm not a person that gives out people meds. So you're going to know this shit way better than I am. Full stop. I just know what the effects are on me.
So now we're talking about Mountain Dew. I feel like
yeah, we're in that place.
Probably covered.
So I feel like we've covered this. I feel like we've gone into this a little bit. We have a couple more segments we want to get done. So let's call this segment done here. Mm-hmm. Do all the stuff at the video that happens after this. And yeah, we'll call this one here. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.